Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 263. So it is April of 2022, and it seems like we're always talking about the 1950 census because it's a big deal. It's certainly not every day that we get a brand new record collection. Well, it may not be new, but it sure is new to us as genealogists, and it's really exciting that it's actually here. All of the digitized images were released on April 1st of 2022. So today what I want to do is just kind of give you an overview because we're at a unique spot in the 1950 census. It is not yet fully indexed. And so that means that there are some unique things we have to keep in mind between now and as we get into summer and things change. So I want to give you kind of an overview of what's going on with the genealogy companies, what you probably want to focus on right now in terms of where to do your research. And I've got an interview for you. I recently spoke to Jim Erickson over at FamilySearch all about the indexing that they are doing with the humans, right? So there's machine learning indexing going on, and then there's going to be that review and follow-up with real people looking at the index and finalizing it. So he is here to tell us all about that, and most importantly, how you can get involved right now, how you can help make a difference for the entire community in terms of getting this done as quickly as possible. So let's kind of roll back to the beginning and talk about the records. So the records this time around, a little different than in 1940 when they had to go and get them in person. This time they were all available to download instantly when they were released by the National Archives. And of course, they weren't available for release until April 1st of 2022, which happens to be 72 years from the time in which they were created, because the census began April 1st of 1950. So they all were able to be downloaded. So some of the questions that people have had is, well, do these companies have these images? Did they all happen right away? Can I get them? Anybody can go to the National Archives and download the entire data set if they wanted to. In reality, as a genealogist, we're probably going to want to actually use the records on the site the way they are presented in kind of a user interface where you can do searching, you can look at the records, you can download them. But yes, FamilySearch, MyHeritage, Ancestry, everybody had access to them and was able to download them and digitize them. Of course, that's just half the battle, isn't it? It's getting them off the servers of the National Archives and then getting them back up on their own servers. And that takes time as well. So they're very busy in that process of publishing those records and making them available right away from a browsing standpoint. So if you kind of know that enumeration district number where your relatives lived, then you could go in and you could start browsing on sites like Ancestry and FamilySearch and MyHeritage. In reality, right now, in this unique time we are in before the full index is complete, the best place to search is the National Archives. And I know that doesn't sound like something I would typically say because we did a whole video session, early last year, I think it was, on the National Archives. And it's very clear that that website is not built for genealogists necessarily. It's not even really built for individual end users, although, they have features that you can use. They are primarily a place to archive and make things available publicly. And of course, they have limited resources. So in the end, it doesn't end up being a really user-friendly website in some respects. And so when you have the chance to get the records that you need somewhere else, like a genealogy site that kind of has them organized and you kind of are familiar with the way it works, then that's always preferable. But in this case, the National Archives is a place to go. And the reason is because the names and the locations have been indexed. this information actually didn't get out quite as widespread as the hoopla that we heard about in the genealogy community, where you're hearing from the big genealogy companies who are talking about, the records are available and you can come in and you can browse and you can go find your ED number, and we're working on indexing so you can volunteer. And that's all fantastic, but it's not the easiest way to search right now. Because the National Archives has already indexed the names and the locations and has a search feature by enumeration district number, it really is the easiest place to search right now, and the place you will probably have the most success, because not only can you search by name, search by location, but you can actually mix and match these options, these filters, if you will, to be able to check all the possibilities and hopefully put your hands on the records of your relatives, or maybe even yourself, right? So that's an important thing to know, that right now that's where you want to go. And in the show notes for this episode, I will have a link. You can Google it. You can Google search the 1950 census at National Archives, but there is a link in the show notes to the direct landing page where you can start your search over at the National Archives. Now, that's not always going to be the case. Once that full index is done, it's double checked by people, well, then you're really probably going to want to be going to one of the big genealogy websites and doing your search there. And that's what we would expect to be doing this summer. We've also covered Steve Morse's website. So he has the One Step Web Pages website at stevemorse.org. That's a wonderful place to go if you're struggling in any of these locations to find who you're looking for. If you need to find the ED number, if you want to get the maps that are associated, all those things, we really, really like the Steve Morse tools, and recently had an interview with him. And so he has definitely primed up his website so that it's there and ready for you to help you to just be an extra set of tools. So really, right now in this point in time, you're really looking at probably using a combination of tools rather than just focusing on one place, like just going to FamilySearch. Because today, FamilySearch really isn't the best place to go and search. It may be definitely in the future once they get their index done. But right now, we're looking at kind of using a combination of tools. Perhaps Steve Morse to find your ED number, perhaps National Archives to then do some searching. And other websites have come up with some tools that you can use right now as well. For example, Ancestry has their brand new ED map finder tool where they create the overlays for you. And you can search. If you happen to have the street address for your relatives, you can enter that street address, run that search, and it will pinpoint it for you on the map. And it will literally have the enumeration district map from 1950, or some of these maps are like 1949, but they were used for the census, and it shows the outline of the ED district. And what's really cool about that is you can literally hover your mouse over the area where the pinpoint is for the house, and it will tell you exactly what the ED number is. With that information, then you can go and search on the National Archives simply by ED number. What I would do is I would go in and put in the state and then enter the ED number, and you should have exactly the collection that you need to then start browsing. But of course, even rather than browsing, if your relatives have kind of a unique name, something that may not be, 2 million people with that name, then you can just simply search by name as well. So what's happening now over at the genealogy websites? Right now, they are working on the indexing. And in the case of Ancestry and FamilySearch are kind of partnering together. And Jim Erickson will be here in a few minutes and talk more about that. But Ancestry is doing the machine learning, the artificial intelligence side, the computer indexing, if you will, of the entire census. And even that takes time, no matter how fast that is. And it's amazing how fast machine learning can be. But even then, it's still going to take time. There's just millions of records. They literally enumerated 150 million people. Once that's done and that's shared with FamilySearch, then FamilySearch has a wonderful place on their website ready to go to help people volunteer to then index that and kind of come back behind the AI indexing and double check everything and fix things and get them all straightened out so that we have the very best index possible. So that's really, really something to look forward to. So before we get into the conversation with Jim Erickson from FamilySearch, I want to talk a little bit real quickly about the kinds of resources that you'll find at genealogygems.com so that you can get up to speed on any of the particular areas that you need. First up, if you just want kind of a good overview and really the history of the 1950 census, then you want to check out the 1950 census. It's called All About the 1950 Census. It's a video that we did that's on our YouTube channel. I would really recommend, if you're going to go back and watch any of the videos, I would do it from our website. And the reason is you've got the full show notes there. So that's a complete article summarizing, sometimes even transcribing everything that you're going to see in the video so that you can word search that page. You can follow along instructions that we provide. And if you're a Genealogy Gems Premium member, you can go to the resources section and you can download the entire article as an ad-free handout. And that's just super helpful, I think, to have and makes it really searchable. And of course, you don't have all the ads. The ads help us make the free content available, but really the handout is the efficient way to really digest all that information. And then, so that was back when we were doing 11s with Lisa, that was 51. And 53, episode 53 was the 1950 census questions. So we really kind of dig into those in depth. You might want to check that out. Okay, and then after that, quite a bit later, episode 79, the maps. And the maps are a fantastic resource. They're completely free. And there's some really cool ways that you can use them. And that's what we really get into. It's called 1950 Census Enumeration District Maps. It was episode 79. And that has some great instructions in the show notes as well. Then after that, I think you'd probably want to go check out how to find rural addresses. Now, this isn't specifically a 1950s necessarily episode, although we kind of, I think, focus on that area. It's really, what do you do when you have an ancestor who lives out in a rural area? Many of us have that. We run into that all the time. And you end up with these rural addresses or route numbers, that kind of thing. And you're wondering, well, how do I get to figure out exactly where these people lived? This is just a really fun deep dive into a step-by-step process of how you can unravel that mystery. It's really fun. It's like putting the pieces of a puzzle together. And I will show you how to do that. That one, premium members, be sure you download the handout for that. That's essential. Really fun. And then we met up with Steve Morse at One Step. So it's called One Step with Steve Morse. That was just a couple of weeks ago. You get to meet Steve in person, which is really fun. And he talks about kind of the origins of his one-step tools and, most importantly, what he's done to prepare for the 1950 census and the kinds of tools that you're going to want to look for. There's a lot on his website at stevemorse.org, and a lot of it has nothing to do with the 1950 census. It's just all different kinds of tools, particularly to help genealogists find records. But he's got some that are very specific, and we go through those more in depth. So you'll want to go check out that. And then premium members, as you'll recall, let's see, I'm doing this episode, I'm recording April 15th. Well, last week, we did 11s with Lisa. We do that live every month just for our premium members. And we spent the full hour and we talked about search strategies. This was so much fun because so many of you sent in your questions and a lot of people initially ran into some trouble finding their relatives in the 1950 census. They just weren't where they expected them to be. And that's really understandable. We don't have the full name index yet, right? So folks sent in their questions and I just had a blast digging in and seeing if I could find them. And sure enough, there were many that I received that I have not had an opportunity to cover on video or in an article. But I can tell you, there hasn't been a case yet where the person wasn't there. They may have been in a different place, but they have always been in the census, and I've been able to find them. So I wanted to share that with you because I want you to feel encouraged. Don't stop just because you take an initial look and you don't find them, because it doesn't mean they aren't there. And in most cases, they are. We talked about that in the All About the 1950 Census session, that in 1950, the focus was on completeness and accuracy. That was of primary concern to the Census Bureau at that time. They knew that there were a lot of improvements they could make. They put a lot of training into place. They really got these enumerators all trained and ready to go and be as accurate as possible. And so what that means is that more than ever, I think we have to resist that temptation to say, oh, well, they must have just missed our people. Or, my people probably weren't, home, or they were somewhere else. They were on vacation and they just got missed. That's really not the case. And if you feel that way, or you need a little encouragement, go back and watch All About the 1950 Census, because I can give you many, many examples of why that is not the case. Doesn't mean there might just be the exception here and there, but in so many cases, they really are there. So don't give up. Go after them. They're there, and watch that video. So premium members, it's called the 1950 Census Search Strategies. Kate, one of our longtime premium members, was so kind to send in her question, and that one really helped us walk through several different issues that people run into in the census. We did find the family. I don't know if that's a spoiler alert, but I also took some time out and just put together a little 3-minute kind of overview video, kind of the rest of the story, telling their story and in their own words. Kate and her husband Chris called in to our voicemail line at 925-272-4021, and they left their reaction to when I sent them the actual census record that they thought might not be there, and it was. So if you just want a little heartstring tug, definitely go back and watch that. And premium members, again, even for premium shows, you get the article and there are no ads on the show notes page for premium episodes like that. But you still have the downloadable handout. So if you want that, it is downloadable and ready for you. Let's see. So this week, we did our Thursday video premiere over at YouTube, and that was the 1950 Census Indexing at FamilySearch, and that's where Jim Erickson joined us. He's been with FamilySearch for a long time. I've known Jim for years. He knows everything about what goes on there, and he is just a wealth of information. So, coming up next, I'm going to play for you the audio from that video. I know a lot of us don't have a chance to sit down and just watch a video. We're on the go. We're doing stuff. We're out working in the yard now that it's spring. And so I want to make sure that you get a chance to hear from Jim. And that is coming up next. Today's episode is sponsored by newspapers.com, the largest online newspaper archive. Newspapers.com makes it easier than ever to find your family's story with more than 500 million digitized newspaper pages from the 1690s to today. Did your dad win a big game in high school? Did your great-grandma win a bake-off? Whether it's a familiar family story or a new discovery, the possibilities for what you might find on newspapers.com are endless. The simple-to-use tools and search features make it easy to discover, save, and share the stories that connect you with the past. Search for obituaries, marriage announcements, birth announcements, photos, and more in papers from across the United States, the UK, Canada, and beyond, stretching back 3 centuries. And for listeners of this podcast, newspapers.com is offering 20% off a subscription, so you can start exploring today. Just use the code GenealogyGems, altogether, no spaces, GenealogyGems at checkout. That's code GenealogyGems to get 20% off today at newspapers.com. Today's episode is sponsored by MyHeritage, a global discovery platform enjoyed by 110 million people worldwide. MyHeritage has it all and offers a full-service experience that bridges your past, present, and future. The MyHeritage DNA Kit reveals your ethnic origins and finds your new relatives based on shared DNA. It's popular all over the world, and their constantly growing DNA database means that more matches to new relatives are just around the corner. You'll receive a percentage breakdown of your ethnic origins from 42 supported regions and weekly email updates as new DNA matches are found. It's also the leading DNA service for anyone with European origins. Make the most of your DNA results with a MyHeritage subscription and access advanced tools for genetic genealogy, like the theory of family relativity, autoclusters, shared ancestral places, and much more. Order your kit today at myheritage.com/DNA. Already taken a DNA test with another service? Upload your DNA data to MyHeritage for free to receive DNA matches and access new discoveries. That's myheritage.com/DNA. So the 1950 U.S. federal census was released by the National Archives just a short time ago on April 1st, 2022. But it was just a release of the digitized images of the census pages. The indexing of those records happens afterwards, and it's really the indexing that makes it possible, of course, for all of us to be able to search the records and find our families. So here to tell us about that really important indexing project to get all this done is Jim Erickson, and he is from FamilySearch, and they are heading up this project. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, Lisa. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
I am so thrilled that you're able to take a few minutes out. I know you guys are so busy. You know, you're right on the heels of Roots Tech just wrapped up, and now we're right here with the U.S. Federal Census for 1950. Do you have somebody you're looking forward to seeing in that census record?
Yeah, both of my parents will be there. My dad will be 20 years old. He turned 21 that year after the census. My mom is 15. She will just have had her 15th birthday. And I know where my mom was. She was in Salt Lake City. But I have no idea where my dad was in 1950. As a 20-year-old, he'd left college, and I know that he had enlisted in the Army, but I don't know. He also worked in San Francisco for a couple of years. I don't know if he'll be in San Francisco or exactly where he would have been in 1950 when the census was taken. So there's a little mystery right there.
Absolutely, and the perfect example of why the indexing is so important, because you'll be able to name search him when this is done. Before we jump into that project, for those who are watching and listening who maybe aren't familiar or haven't used FamilySearch, tell us what FamilySearch.org does and offers up genealogists.
FamilySearch is a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1894 as the Genealogical Society of Utah. FamilySearch is more of a more recent incarnation of the organization that kind of reflects when we went online and when we started publishing CD-ROMs in the 1990s. We've been microfilming and digitizing records since 1938. We started a worldwide project to go and collect records from around the world, and microfilm was really the innovation that allowed us to store all those records in a library. Getting all of a whole bunch of books or physical records in one location was difficult. Since then, all of our record operations is now all digital. We from the inception to the publication, all of our records are captured digitally now. But we have worldwide operations in hundreds of countries. We publish over about 1 billion records a year. And as a nonprofit, we partner with commercial entities who have an interest in profit, because we know that they know how to innovate. And that also helps our resources go further through partnerships with these commercial entities, which is 1950 census is actually an example of that sort of a partnership. We're working on this with Ancestry using the resources that they have. But FamilySearch has a collaborative family tree where you can see what others know about your family. We have, like I mentioned, 10 billion records that are online. We have free resources to learn how to do family history. And we really try to just bring people wherever they are to the experiences that can help them learn about their family.
Wow, it's amazing how much it's grown. I remember the days of the CD-ROMs, right, with the record sets that we used to order. And now, gosh, so much is available for free from home. I know we need to sign up for a free account, right, to use the website and take advantage of the records. I love the wiki. It's such a wonderful treasure trove of knowledge, I think, when it comes to genealogy research. So let's talk about the most exciting and the newest record collection, which is the 1950 census. So when it was released, did you get all the images? And we know that the National Archives released them. Does that mean instantaneous publication on FamilySearch.org? How did that work initially?
Well, this was, so 10 years ago, in 2012, when they released the 1940 census, we were actually waiting at the National Archives with a van and hard drives to transfer all of the data onto hard drives and to take them to our data facility in Virginia. This time, everything was available online. So everything was downloaded and uploaded to our servers immediately. They made that available. There was high demand. So that was one of the challenges that we faced, was making sure that we were going to be able to download those images. Over 6 million images is a lot of images to be able to download. And those images include records for 151 million people. So that's a lot of information at high quality resolution. So that was actually the first hurdle. And since we are doing this project with Ancestry, we also had to wait for Ancestry to do the same thing and download the images to be able to process them to create their computerized index with their own handwriting recognition technology that then came to us and makes it so much easier to review an index as opposed to starting with transcription from scratch. So there are so many innovations that have taken place, but from the National Archives, the online delivery of the images was one of those innovations.
How fantastic to be able to do that online. I can imagine that speeding it up. And then you've got artificial intelligence, which is already impacting how we use genealogy websites, how we access digitized books, and here you are using it to help index the records. So give us an idea. I'd love to know kind of a comparison between the speed at which you indexed 1940, which I thought was pretty darn quick, to how that looks for 1950.
That is a great question, and we're still learning how this is going to play out with the 1950 census. So the 1940 census, well, actually, let me go back. So one of the first projects that we did as FamilySearch when we were publishing CD-ROMs was the 1880 census. The 1880 census took us more than a decade to press onto CD-ROM. It was a huge project, and it was crowdsourced. But before the advent of the internet, it was sending packets and physical papers around, and then gathering them, and then creating a CD-ROM. So we went from a project like that to doing the 1940 census, just over a decade later, in a matter of about 6 months. So already the technology was just astounding, what you're able to do just because of the internet. Now you have the artificial intelligence and the handwriting character recognition, and you have innovations that we're doing with the crowdsourcing, and all of a sudden you're able to take those tasks that were all human, bounded by human capabilities and the need to have all these people helping, and you're now allowing the computer to do what the computer can do. So with the 1950 census, we are actually indexing or reviewing this automated index for every single field that was captured in the 1950 census. So it's way more data than we were dealing with 1940. 1940, because of the cost and the time, we just wanted to make sure that we just had the most genealogically relevant fields captured. So occupation and some of those fields were seen as kind of extra fields. But for 1950, we recognize that we can do a lot more in terms of the experiences that we can provide and that these other entities can provide if we have a full index. So that's one of the big innovations. So it's going really well, and we have a goal to get it all done by Flag Day. So that's June 14th. So that will be about really 2 months from when we really got the project going and kind of came up to speed till its conclusion, if we can get there. And that just depends on how many people come and participate. There's more than one way to participate, so we feel like we have a lot of options, and it's more accessible than it's ever been because of how recent it is. Recognizing handwriting from 1950s is not that different from recognizing handwriting from a week ago. Things haven't changed that dramatically. And so it's a really accessible experience, and these are people that everybody knows, so it's kind of fun to come in and see what you can find in those areas where your family is from.
Exactly. Before we talk about how people can kind of get involved in the project, you said something which I hope that everybody listening and watching really appreciates, which is every field. I mean, you must have gotten excited when you heard that was really going to be possible. I know, just hearing it myself, I'm like, that's a game changer, because now you can slice and dice data in so many ways. You can look up everybody who worked on the railroad, or everybody who, whatever the fields are that were filled out. What do you think the impact, will that change anything about genealogy research?
Yes, it will. And not just genealogical research, but understanding the makeup of our country in 1950, and really understanding the history of our nation, because that is part of your family history, is enabled by capturing those additional fields. So being able to see differences in income, differences in occupation from region to region, being able to easily see neighborhoods. The address for the 1950 census is similar to the 1940 census in that it's a vertical capture down the side of the forms. So that is something that just allows people to see what's there today, if their house is still there. I mean, these are experiences that we've dreamed of, but without the index, it's impossible to provide that sort of an experience. And so now with the commercial entities and what we're trying to do, you're going to have a lot of different experiences now that are unlocked and available because of these innovations, and especially what Ancestry has enabled us to do with this computer-aided index that they've created.
Since you're partnering together, is it available at Ancestry for free as well as for FamilySearch?
Ancestry will make their own business decisions, but yes, initially it'll be available for free. They've opened up the 1940 census recently, and that's been available for free.
Right.
I don't know what all their future plans are, but it allows them a lot of flexibility on how to do that. Of course, we make everything we can available for free at FamilySearch, and this is again, there's going to be a lot of different experiences that are available around this record set, and so it's exciting, going all the way back to how the National Archives made it available. It's really democratizing the records and allowing people. I think their goal is to just make it accessible to as many people as possible. And then it's these other organizations that have a vision for what they can do with those records.
Yes, and you guys certainly had the vision around the indexing project. That's something that is such a skill that you've all developed and really fine-tuned. You've been able to crowdsource so much of what then becomes available to everybody. So tell folks how they can get involved. And I'm really interested in some of the changes. I was very excited to hear that people will be able to have, in a way, a more personal indexing experience. Tell folks about that. Yeah,
so something that everybody wants to do when they come in and volunteer and get involved in a project is to find their own family. Now, this, just because of how quickly we're trying to get it done, that will be expedited. So when the index is published and available, after it's been reviewed, everybody's going to have that wonderful experience. But even on the review side, we've made it so people can search for a specific location down to the county level, or in some cases down to the city level. And then you can actually search for a surname, a last name within that location. Now, if your family hasn't already been reviewed, you'll be able to review it. If it has been reviewed, well, that just means that it's going to be published sooner because progress has already been made. And then you can come back and review it. And if for some reason the person who reviewed it did it wrong, you can still make corrections. We do corrections on FamilySearch. Ancestry does corrections on Ancestry. And we are sharing whatever corrections are made on FamilySearch with Ancestry so they can get the benefit of any corrections that are made on our website as well. So
that's terrific. So where do they go to sign up and help you?
The question. So so for the 1940 census, we had 163,000 people come and help and get involved. And with how easy it is for 1950, we think that we'll have well over 200,000 people who will come and want to review these names. So if you want to get involved, there are a couple different places you can go, but the easiest place to remember is FamilySearch.org/1950 census. And on that page, there's a lot of information, but near the top of the page, there's a big link to join the project and to come over and participate. The project is ongoing. There are all the states are there. Some have already been published, but come and get involved and see what you can do. It's going very quickly. It's people are really enjoying it, and we're glad that it's coming along as quickly as it is. So FamilySearch.org/1950 census.
Terrific. And Jim, they can do this from home, from their computer. Is there a certain minimum commitment that they have to make, or a certain minimum amount of technological ability?
No. So this is, again, one of the things that's kind of fun. I mentioned it briefly before. There's actually more than one experience or way to participate. The standard way that most people who've done it before want to participate is what we call the household review. The household review, we try to identify from the head of the house, all the members of the household or the family, to the next head of the house, and that can sometimes cross pages on the census forms. And that is an every field review, and you can come in because of how it's set up now. You can review as many of those fields as you want, and then the next person can come and pick up where you left off. So that's really fun. Now that does require you to be on a computer. The other task, well, there's two other tasks, but another one that doesn't require you to be on a computer, you can be on your handheld device, your smartphone, is what we call name review. So instead of reviewing all of the fields, you can download our app called Get Involved. So FamilySearch Get Involved. It's available on the iTunes Store, the Apple Store, as well as from Google. the Android store, and you can download the app, and you can just start looking at the images where we have the names of the people in the census, and then you can compare that with what the computer thinks it is, and you can either say, yes, that's right, or you can actually enhance or fix what the name is. And that you can do hundreds of these in an hour. I've done it. It's a fun activity. It's really engaging. And if you like seeing that you're making a difference in terms of volume, it's a really fun way to participate. Again, the computer doesn't always get it right, so you have to be really careful in the review process, but it's super easy to just look at the image and look at the indexed value for the name and just make sure it's right. So it's really easy, and you can do that online as well. You don't have to have the app. And then the third task, so there's the household review or the family review, the name review, and then the other one is the header review. So every census image, every census ledger has a header that includes all of the location information and the information about the enumeration itself. And that's a separate task. We broke that one out because, again, it's the data is formatted differently. So if you want to go in and help us, those have to be done as well to be able to publish the data set. So we'd invite you to come in and see what states still have the header review available and to help us finish out that as well. It's not, for a lot of people, it's not as exciting because it doesn't include the names of the people. But it still has to be done to be able to publish the reviewed index.
I hadn't thought about the header, but boy, that's pretty important. If that's not right, then we get way off track pretty quickly. So that includes our enumeration district number, the county number. That makes a lot of sense. Well, Jim, it sounds like you guys have really been innovating over at FamilySearch. We're grateful. We're grateful that you're giving everybody watching an opportunity to also give back a little bit, and we can all pull together and get this done by Flag Day. That sounds pretty great. So it's familysearch.org/1950 census. And Jim, again, thank you so much. And I sure hope we'll talk again even before the 1960 census, okay?
I hope so. Thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure to be with you today.
Thanks so much for joining me for this Genealogy Gems podcast episode, number 263. And as always, you can find the show notes over at genealogygems.com. And there on the homepage, you can also sign up for our free newsletter. That's the best way to stay in touch with me, and it will keep you up to date each week on everything that's going on around here. The free podcast, premium membership content, and of course, our videos. And for the show notes page for this episode, again, number 263, you'll find that link over to FamilySearch's volunteer indexing project. And what a great way to get involved and give back a little bit to the community. And don't forget that you can save 20% off of newspapers.com. It's a heck of a deal. We're just thrilled to have them now joining us as a sponsor and providing a really terrific discount to be able to use newspapers.com. So check it out, newspapers.com, and use the coupon code GenealogyGems. Thank you so much for listening, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.